All right, folks, once more, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is, wherever in this world it is that you are. Welcome once more to another live stream of streamer analysis. We are simulcasting on the IP2 Wiki Info YouTube channel. That's where you would have to be if you want to participate in the chat. But I ran an AI analysis recently on a song that public figure Victor De Leon, aka Zaya, a violent criminal, stalker, um, abuser of the vulnerable, posted of me not too long ago. I'm not going to play the song, but I am going to read the lyrics to the song to many of you because the lyrics have been run through the AI, and what the AI discovered is actually pretty disturbing. Uh, it's amazing as to how much psychological insight the AI is able to determine from just about everything. It's really amazing. But I do want to share this with many of you because it just needs to be shared. Now, first, I want to show you the graphic that was posted along with the song. That's supposed to be me. The title of the song is Monica the Star, Alexandra the Flop. Okay. As many of you are aware, over a decade ago now, I was better known as adult actress Monica Foster. No regrets, but I wouldn't recommend my life path to many people. I made the choice to go into the adult entertainment industry, so I do have to accept how I'm viewed, not just by this jerk, but by a lot of people. I'd actually say that more women look down upon me than men do. But I've been given a pretty hard time by society since I left the adult industry. And even before I was in the adult industry, I was given a hard time by society simply by being what I am, a Black African American woman who doesn't exactly fit a certain stereotype and who stands up for herself. That's me. But I do want to share with many of you this AI analysis because I think many of you will find it interesting. So let's go ahead and bring that up. All right, here we go. AI psychological assessment of public figure Victor De Leon, aka Zaya, in regards to his online activity, and specifically a song he posted about Alexandra Mayers, retired adult actress Monica Foster. So here's the lyrics, and I used a transcriber to transcribe them, so I think that it did blank out the bad words. Monica Foster, freak star, she the flames. Alexandra Mayers is just a blank with no game. Talk tough on YouTube, live but shook when Zaya came. Two sides of the mask, but they'll never be the same. On YouTube, live running mouth, talking slick, Zaya pulled up on stream. She was crying real quick. Almost had a heart attack. Swears she saw death, but he ain't even playing her. She just fold under stress, all that cap in the chat, acting raw with the threats. But when Zaya pulled close, she was losing her breath. Delusional and stupid, blank. Guy with the rant. Ugly lies in her mouth, but her soul even worse than that. Monica fought a Monica Foster, a freak star, she flame. Alexandra, man who gawked up on YouTube Live but shook when you came. Two sides of the mess, but they'll never be the same. Airport tears when the writer walked away. Didn't want to link up 'cause her blank smelled decay. Camera caught the crash. Whole scene was a wreck. Now she back online begging for a little respect. Monica was dope. Had the vibe, had to shine. Alexandra washed up. Living lies online. Say she running blank, but her story's all cap. Zaya slide in the Hellcat. Make that blank clap. Not for no. Monica the star, Alexandra the flop. One stayed hot, other begging for a spot. Internet threats, but in real life she fold. YouTube live receipts. Yeah, the story been told. Monica Foster freak star. She a flavor. Alexandra man just to know. Talked up on YouTube live. Two sides of the M, but they'll never be the same. Baby, but they'll never be the same. Monica, the flame, Alexandra, man is just a hoe with no game, being talked up on YouTube live. But when Zaya came, wait, let's go back. Oops. What was the last part? I can't see it because there's a little thing blocking the screen. Something about YouTube live. Of the mess, but they'll never be the, I guess, same. Okay. So, those are the lyrics. Now, what I do want to say is that the particular person, oh, here it is, YouTube Live, but when Zaya came to size, I see what they were trying to say. All right, here's what some of you need to know about the backstory of the author of this particular song. Those of you who follow me on IP2 Wiki Info, you already know the backstory. When I was in Orlando, Florida, this person approached me pretty late at night without my consent on International Boulevard, and he had his backpack in which he always carries a firearm. I'm lucky to have gotten out of that situation alive. It was in a place that was not very trafficked at that time of evening. He'd already said under no circumstances did he want to approach me, but he did that particular night. And I think that he probably was pretty embarrassed by the outcome because even though he has painted the false narrative that I'm the one who called the police, I actually never did. Even though he stalked me, tried to intimidate me, tried to bully me, tried to humiliate me, I did manage to get out of the situation. I was riding my e-scooter at the time. And he called the police to try to evade arrest because I guess he figured that I was going to call, but I didn't. But he's never really been able to live that down. He has a pretty vast and very aggressive male audience that routinely does bully, stalk, and intimidate and harass and try to push to suicide their female targets. Namely, he does seem to go maliciously after mothers of daughters. As many of you do know, I am child-free by choice, but he does maliciously attack and go after Black women. He also tends to go after the elderly. So here's what the AI had to say about this. And hey, Clumsy, I hope you're having a good night. I won't keep doing my thing because I've been thinking about the situation involving Zaya, aka Victor De Leon, lately. I've consulted with a certain professional about it, but I've also consulted with the AI about it. And the conclusion is he is going to try to kill me or murder me. Most definitely. And if not him, one of his associates. So what does that mean? That means that I need to protect myself. And I will continue with my Bible reading. There are some projects that I have that are not linked to my online presence within this area of the internet. But if he's going to gun me down, I'm not going to make it easy for him to be able to seek me out and do that. And I would suggest the same to his other targets. But yeah, um, this is probably, unless there's some other threats made that I feel need to be documented. I don't want to cover this anymore. It's too much. I feel like there's people who should have paid more attention to this particular situation, but there's a lot of motive for people not to. There's people profiting off of what he's doing. It's bad. And a lot of his targets or victims, they're afraid to speak up. So I mean, what's the point, really? I think I've said pretty much everything that needs to be said when it comes to him, but I am going to read through this AI analysis because I was shocked at what the AI returned with the results just from those lyrics. But I am also simulcasting on the Porn News Today channel, so especially to young women who may be thinking about going into the adult industry, and the adult industry isn't like how it used to be when I was younger and I was in there. But even when it comes to things like OnlyFans, what you have to remember is that there's going to be men like this who they're not able to decipher fantasy from reality. That's number one. But number two, it for some reason they can't let go of adult actress well, they can't fathom that someone who chose to be an adult actress moves on in life. I just want to warn young women out there, if you make the choice of being an adult model, even a glamour model, but especially an adult actress or a sex worker, you're always going to be given a really hard time. And I hate that the world is still this way. I really do. Not only men won't be able to let go of a choice that you made, but a lot of women won't be able to too. And a lot of men, like the author of the song that we're about to do an AI analysis of, they encourage certain women to go after women like me in the worst of ways. I guess the women who come after me, especially if they have daughters, they don't realize their daughter could easily make a similar choice to myself, but maybe it's the fear of that makes certain women so aggressive and downright mean when it comes to women who have been adult actresses or models or sex workers. I don't really know. It could be. It could be. All right, let's go ahead and read this. The song as psychological weaponry. From the lens, the song is not primarily artistic expression. It's a form of harassment dressed in music. Its primary function becomes to degrade the target's identity publicly, to assert dominance over someone the author has tried to control, and to transform past obsession and hostility into social validation. Fans of the song as witnesses to the humiliation. Hmm. This use of media aligns with what psychologists term narcissistic revenge scripting. When an abuser feels rejected or humiliated, they create narratives or performances that reframe themselves as powerful and the victim as worthless, often using public channels to amplify the message. It is both an ego repair strategy and a continuation of abuse by proxy. That's interesting. I find that second point interesting, to reassert dominance over someone the author has tried to control. And that's on point. This person is used to intimidating and controlling women extensively. He has not been able to do that when it comes to me. We have a comment from someone else who also was an adult actress. She says, "Our first lady was a sex worker. Anything is possible and anyone can change their future trajectory with hard work and dedication." I agree. Just Jen definitely has had a bit of an easier time than me, and I'll tell you why. Just Jen is white. I'm not saying she hasn't had a hard time. Not at all. She definitely has gone through a lot. But someone like me, it's a little bit more difficult. It really is. You kind of have to be a Black woman who's left the adult industry to know it fully. But it is different. But I do agree, anything is possible. Stalking and control dynamics. The repetition of the victim's former stage name, Monica Foster, and current name, Alexandra, in the lyrics is deeply telling. It suggests a fixation on her identity transformation, an inability or refusal to let her move forward beyond her past, and a desire to collapse her public and private selves, erasing boundaries and autonomy. This act mirrors classic stalking psychology, where the perpetrator maintains a parasitic relationship with the victim's identity. They may feel entitled to that person's image or story and use exposure or narrative control as ongoing methods of psychological possession. In forensic psychology, this is often described as identity enmeshment. The stalker cannot differentiate between self and target, so any autonomy or progress the victim achieves feels like a personal insult. The song becomes a symbolic punishment for that independence. Number 3, narcissistic and sadistic traits. Given the prior threats and harassment, the tone of the lyrics reflects narcissistic rage, the devaluation stage that follows idealization in the narcissistic cycle of abuse. Key patterns include public humiliation as dominance display. Camera caught the crash, begging for respect. It references those lyrics. And this is interesting, really, because this does reflect De Leon, aka Zaya's behavior toward his other female targets, Carissa, namely. But there's others, Brown Skin Lady, for example, and neither Brown Skin Lady or Carissa were ever adult actresses or whatnot, not at all. But that's what he does. Mocking vulnerability, turning fear, trauma, or emotional reactions into ridicule. Grandiosity through cruelty. Positioning the self as omniscient. Omniscient? Omniscient, is that how you say that word? I have a hard time with that word. Positioning the self as the omniscient judge of another's worth. So the whole point is to tear me down, discredit me, diminish me, humiliate me, mocking me, whatever he can possibly do. All right. And that's what he does to any woman that he feels he cannot control. And really think about that. Would you want someone to only be nice to you because they think that they can control you? I wouldn't. And that's why I don't have people like that in my life. There's also a sadistic pleasure evident in the linguistic rhythm, the enjoyment of cruelty as performance. In some cases, this combination, narcissistic rage plus sadistic pleasure, indicates malignant narcissism, a personality organization combining narcissistic, antisocial, and paranoid traits. And that's him. He's a solid narcissist, definitely paranoid. That's why he carries the gun in his backpack. Sadistic, without a doubt. The psychology of gendered violence. Because the song specifically targets a woman and references her history in adult work, it also invokes misogynistic shaming mechanisms. The use of sexualized insults, hoe with no game, smelled decay, functions as sexual degradation, a tactic to strip a woman of dignity and identity autonomy. And it's not only Victor De Leon, aka Zaya, who's basically tried to degrade me in a sexual sense. You have Junkie James spreading a lot of lies about me, and it's it was specifically to basically strip me of my dignity. I've had a lot of men do that in regards to me over the years. Actually, I'll show you one of the main ones who's currently in prison because he did a lot of horrible things to a lot of horrible people. But this particular guy here, Donald Carlos Sion, a lot of what he does and who he is very similar to De Leon, aka Zaya. Very similar. All right, let's continue. Psychologically, this serves two functions for the abuser. Number one, projection. The stalker externalizes his own shame, guilt, or sexual conflict onto the target. Number two, reinforcement of control. By reducing her to an object of ridicule or disgust, he reasserts dominance over the narrative of her sexuality. This mirrors coercive control seen in gendered abuse cases, where humiliation is used to erase the target's self-determination Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. My internet went down briefly. Let me go ahead and bring up the file again. All right, here we go. All right, I'm not sure where it cut off. I think it cut off around number 5. The obsessional cycle and paradox of dependency. Even as the song attacks her, it also reveals continued obsession. Repetition of her name, detailed references to incidents, airport tears, YouTube Live, and emotional intensity show the stalker remains psychologically tethered to her. And that's scary, isn't it? In many stalking cases, hatred becomes the only remaining connection. The abuser cannot tolerate the absence of contact, so hostility replaces affection. This is the paradox of obsessional attachment. If I can't have you, I'll destroy you, but I'll never let you disappear. Interesting. Number 6, broader interpretation. A portrait of psychological possession. With this context, the song reads like an externalized delusion of control, a fantasy that the stalker still has narrative power over the victim's life. And that is what he tries to achieve when you really think about it, when it comes to his targets, in other words, his victims. We've seen it extensively, Carissa. You're seeing it when it comes to the situation in regards to me. We're seeing it a lot of places when it comes to him. And he's emboldened enough to make the threats referencing his gun. By turning her story into a performance, in other words, entertainment, the abuser symbolically owns her again, even as she has escaped in real life. This suggests loss of ego boundaries, pathological need for significance, and an inability to accept rejection or independence of the other person. It's less a song about her than a manifestation of his inability to stop defining himself through her. All right, now it gives you a summary of psychological profile, aspect, indicators, interpretation. Okay, the aspect of motivation. Reassert dominance, regain narrative control, interpretation, narcissistic injury, which leads to revenge. The tone, derisive, voyeuristic, dehumanizing, which means that he's sadistic. Fixation, use of both past and present names. The interpretation of that, according to the AI, is obsessional attachment. His cognition, distorted sense of entitlement. And we do see that a lot within him. He has a very distorted sense of entitlement. And that's because of his pathological narcissism. Emotional state, rage, humiliation, envy, defensive against loss and insignificance. All right, number 7, final psychological assessment. This song is best understood as a manifestation of ongoing abuse, not merely artistic expression. It reflects narcissistic injury and rage, sadistic control disguised as performance, and a delusional parasitic fixation that perpetuates the victim's re-traumatization. That's interesting. That second point under number 7 specifically, sadistic control disguised as performance. You know, when you hear some of these streamers who are routinely doing some of the things that we're going over today, it's not entertainment. It's a form of solid abuse. It really is. And some of you are educated enough to already know that, but you participate anyway, don't you? In psychological and forensic terms, it shows a clear pattern of revenge pornography by proxy, not explicit imagery, but verbal reconstruction of the victim's sexual history to humiliate and dominate her socially. Good to know. Good to know. The name of the game when it comes to De Leon is domination. Usually people who want to dominate others embody very little control in their actual lives. All right, here's a psychological risk assessment profile based on the context you've described in the behavior. All right, let's look at this. Actually, in the behavior, what else did it say? I don't like this slide thing. It's hard to see certain areas. Okay. Okay, let me reread that. Here's a psychological risk assessment profile based on the context you've described in the behavior reflected in the song. All right. This is not a formal clinical diagnosis, which will require direct evaluation, but an analytical profile built from established psychological and forensic frameworks used to understand stalker-type aggressors and harassment offenders. Number 1, overview. Pattern of behavior. The songwriter demonstrates behaviors consistent with what forensic psychologists classify as a resentful and intimacy-seeking stalker hybrid. The subtype emerges when a person experiences rejection, loss of control, or humiliation by someone they once idealized and responds with obsessional hostility disguised as moral or emotional justification. The use of a diss track amplifies the harassment publicly, turning private resentment into performative dominance. The pattern converts internal shame into external aggression. And again, we have that word performative. He tries to say he's an entertainer, whereas in actuality, he's a criminal. He seeks to dominate people. In my case, I just cannot be dominated. I am that person. My psychological type, or if I had to be defined, extreme alpha female, which is another reason why life is probably kind of difficult for me. But I would definitely frustrate somebody like him, which is why he's made it known that he wants to murder me. And why he's made it known he wants to murder some other people too. Number 2, core psychological drivers. Okay. Narcissistic injury, feels devalued or ignored, cannot tolerate loss of admiration, rewrites the victim's identity to show superiority by using the terms washed up or flop. Obsessional attachment, fixation on the target's identity as central to self-concept, uses both current and former names, implying ownership and familiarity. Rage and control, seeks revenge to neutralize humiliation. Interesting. Public humiliation through lyrics, mocking trauma, crying, airport, and he's done more than that. Him and his group have contacted people in my personal life. Him and his group have done a lot of things to not only me, but to some other women as well. Paranoid distortion. Belief that the victim deserves punishment or exposure. Moralizing tone. Portraying victim as deceitful or deserving ridicule. Together, these create what's called a narcissistic control loop, an emotional cycle of fascination, resentment, and punishment that can repeat indefinitely. And that's the goal of him. He wants this to repeat indefinitely because he's got a bunch of monsters as his audience who donate to him to do exactly what we're outlining today. His girlfriend encourages it. And part of the reason that she does is that she's extensively jealous of me. Extensively. She's very jealous of Carissa too. If I were the girlfriend, what I would think to myself is, gosh, I'm in a relationship with somebody who's only with me because I'm an effective tool to go after the women that he's actually obsessed with. I don't even think he likes his girlfriend, aside from the fact that she's child size when it comes to her height, and he does like little girls. That's interesting. All right, number 3, personality patterns and traits. From a clinical personality lens based on DSM-5 and contemporary research, this behavior reflects elements of narcissistic personality traits, grandiose self-view, entitlement to control another's identity, devaluation of others when admiration is lost, and externalization of blame. She's the problem, not me. Now, what's interesting about this too, and you know that body cam footage that Zaya reviewed recently of Carissa at her Florida residence? Carissa did explicitly tell the officer that he really amped up against her when she stopped stroking his ego. And as soon as that was said in the video, when they were recapping it, Zaya's girlfriend immediately, out of defensiveness, really, and her own feelings of inadequacy, said that that wasn't true. It absolutely is true. This particular guy cannot handle criticism or rejection. None of it. Which means that he's not really somebody who should be a live streamer at all. Number 2, antisocial psychopathic traits. Okay, let's look at that. Exploiting another's suffering for pleasure or attention. Well, he definitely does that. Lack of empathy or remorse. Definitely. Use of manipulation and intimidation for dominance. Yeah. I don't think that he's ever actually had a relationship with any women who are fully mature. Because he's not a fully mature male, and I still think that he's older than he claims to be. He acts like a young guy, and I guess he has some of you fooled, but he's not. But then again, his audience is comprised of males exactly like him. And a lot of them are incels. They would view him as Mr. Man, and, I mean, I just thought of something else. If he had managed to be friends with me, that would have elevated him a lot in the eyes of his audience. Why? Well, because despite what anyone wants to say about me, once you're an adult actress at the level that I was at, you are viewed as a sex symbol for the rest of your life. Not only negatively, but positively. But not only did I reject this fool, But I've outlined exactly what kind of monster and criminal he is. That would be very humiliating in his eyes. So he's not going to stop until I'm dead. He's just not. Paranoid and obsessional features. Intrusive interest in the victim's private life. Now, we saw that when he had his associates, who were mainly women who did this, they contacted someone that they believed to be a romantic interest of mine. Yes, they did. They did it to Carissa, too. They've done it to a lot of people. Well, he's not just a child. I mean, we could do another stream another day. I don't really have the interest in doing so, but do you realize exactly how mentally ill he is to identify with the character of the Joker? Do you understand how horrific of a character that is to identify with? That's why I'm saying I'm done with a lot of things. All right. Projection of hostile motives into the victim. She lies. She's fake. Well, he's the liar, and he's fake as can be. Persistent preoccupation even after rejection. This cluster of traits often underlies malignant narcissism, a severe variant combining narcissistic, antisocial, and paranoid traits, frequently associated with stalking and reputational attacks. Behavioral escalation risks. Now, this is what some of you need to pay attention to, especially if you ever find yourself targeted by this person. And this is why you're not really going to see me around much more. Based on established forensic literature, Mullen, Path, Purcell, 2009, several risk indicators for escalation are present. Identity fusion sees the victim's existence as tied to his own sense of self, very high. Public humiliation behavior uses media, music, video, social to degrade the target. Again, likelihood very high. I also want to note that his best friend, Sandman, he pretty much fits the same psychological profile. In fact, as we speak, he's doing an emergency live specifically about me. Let's see what it's titled. Alex Gone Crazy. And then he's trying to monetize it too. If someone could watch that stream and provide me a list of who's donating, I would appreciate it. But let's continue. Past threats or violence. Prior history of threats increases relapse risk very high. Perceived loss of control. If victim ignores or blocks communication, the anger will intensify. Very high. Lack of empathy or insight justifies cruelty as truth telling. Again, very high risk there. Social amplification. Online validation reinforces obsession. In other words, his fans approving of what he's doing, approving of the lyrics, approving of his activity, his live streams, moderate to high. Together, these factors make continued harassment and possible escalation highly probable, especially if the stalker feels provoked or humiliated publicly. Number 5, motivational analysis. This individual's behaviors appear driven by narcissistic revenge, a desire to reclaim dignity by dominating the person who symbolizes their shame. Because the victim's existence represents rejection or autonomy, their independence itself becomes intolerable. Thus, any perceived silence or success by the victim can re-trigger rage, and lead to renewed contact, online attacks, or proxy harassment, using fans or new artistic works to continue the abuse. Number 6, psychological interpretation of the quote-unquote art. The musical medium functions as, number 1, a ritual of control, restating ownership of the victim's narrative. Number 2, a defense mechanism, disguising obsession as creativity. Number 3, a re-traumatization method, ensuring the victim remains psychologically trapped through public degradation. This is what experts call symbolic violence. The abuser, Zaya, aka Victor De Leon, maintains domination through representation, words, media, imagery, rather than direct physical contact, though the underlying impulse is the same. And again, this is not just words. This is somebody who, without my consent, approached me with a gun in his goddamn backpack late at night and then called the cops on himself. Can't make this up. That's the truth. Victim psychology considerations. Victims of such prolonged harassment can often experience complex trauma and hypervigilance, identity disturbance from repeated public misrepresentation, avoidance or isolation due to fear of exposure, and chronic anxiety, mistrust, or depression. In other words, this is suicide coercion. Everything that he and his group, ETC Live Streaming LLC, does is an effort to push their targets to kill themselves. Make no mistake about it. In trauma psychology, this aligns with coercive trauma bonds, where the abuser's obsession continues to define the victim's reality long after direct contact has ceased. The best countermeasure is legal, digital, and psychological boundary reinforcement, not engagement or defense. I really do hate to have to do it, but I'm not engaging anymore. Number 8, summary risk assessment. Fixation strength, severe. Repetition of name and personal details, long term. Aggression potential, very high. History of threats and demeaning, objectifying content. Dehumanization level, extreme. Treats target as caricature or object, not human. Empathy deficit, severe. No remorse, pleasure and humiliation. And the last, likelihood of persistence, very high. Public fixation, narcissistic reinforcement from the audience. Yep. Let's keep going. Anything else? Yep. One more part. Key psychological insight. This kind of individual often does not stop until external structures enforce separation, restraining orders, deplatforming, or lack of audience attention. Internally, their obsession sustains a fragile identity. Without the victim's symbolic presence, they experience ego collapse. Thus, disengagement without enforcement rarely works. It's not indifference, it's dependency disguised as hate. Yeah. So that's it. I wanted to go over that. There's a few more clips that I have. There's a few. I don't really know if I want to go over them or not, but I kind of need to, just in the event that something bad does happen. So I probably will. I don't want this person in my chat. I've learned something about who that is. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get going. Have a great night, day, whatever time it is, wherever in this world it is that you are. And just keep in mind, that guy Sandman, same exact thing as De Leon, same thing. They work in tandem. The whole situation revolving around those two is going to end extremely badly. Mark my words on that. It's going to end very badly. And all of you who fed into it, you're going to be forced to take accountability. Have a good night.